how easy, or is it even at all possible, to sustain yourself through your art form in Malta?
It opened my eyes into what this industry is.
It's very hard for me. I don't know, but I can assume that it's hard for everyone.
Is it feasible to do just that as a full-time job? From me, it's a no.
She doesn't have a certificate, she doesn't have a degree in dance, so why is she teaching?
Incredible that we have this in Malta. Nowhere else do you find it.
Welcome to the She Word, where we have conversations that women rarely have but really should. My name is Sasha, host for this edition of the She Word, the Young Women's edition, and I'm so excited to be back on this table to have the conversations that young women really need to have. I'd like to remind you to follow and subscribe to our channels. You can follow us on Spotify and Instagram, and you can also subscribe to Patreon, where 50% of our proceedings go towards the Richmond Foundation, which is offering a service for young women who need therapy and cannot access it. So, without further ado, let's get straight into our show. Today's show is Young Women and the Arts, and I'm joined by three incredibly talented guests, each excelling in their artistic fields. Being an artist myself, I've been wanting to do this show for quite some time, knowing perfectly how hard it is to achieve some recognition on the island for the work that you do, and how challenging it can be to make a living off of your craft. For this show, I sought to touch upon three different types of art. So we've got fine arts and tattoo artistry, we've got theatre, and we've also got dance. And we'll be exploring these different disciplines of artistic expression together. So, our guests for today, we've got Rebecca Bonaci, who is mostly known for her tattoo artistry and most recently launched her debut solo exhibition showcasing her painting for the first time ever, focused on motherhood and a new mother's identity in this day and age. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Hannah Spiteri, who brings characters to life on the stage and has taken part in some of Malta's most popular and best theatre productions, including recently being the lead actress on Grease. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me as well.
Thank you. And finally, Cheryl Lofreda, contemporary dancer and founder of Concept of Movement, a dance movement which rose to prominence within its early years on the island. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you all for accepting the invitation to be here. So, ladies, I want you to all take a moment to introduce yourselves, perhaps mention something which I haven't. Rebecca, you want to get us started?
Oh. My name is Rebecca Bonaci, as you said. I'm a tattoo artist and visual artist. I studied fine art back in 2014, and then I pursued a career in tattooing. And now, after all these years, finally, I have my first solo exhibition, which is on till the 3rd of December at Spazio Creative. Yes, it's about my experience as a first-time mom. Yes, and now after this exhibition, I think I have to do both tattooing and painting. So
you found your
yes.
balance basically, and we'll actually get back to the exhibition as well later on because I want to ask you a bit about it. But thank you so much for being here, Hannah.
Hi, so I'm Hannah Spiteri. I'm a musical theatre performer, specifically here in Malta, but I do a lot of other things, as I think we all do here. I have a degree in psychology, a bachelor's degree, and full-time, I mean, when I'm not on stage, I teach English and I work at an English language school. So three things that have nothing to do with each other, but we make it work, I guess.
And it's a way to also support what you actually love to do, which is performing.
Yes, of course. If I could, performing would be the be-all and end-all of what I'm doing. But we're making it work. We're starting out. We're seeing where it leads us, really. But yes, one supports the other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Cheryl?
So hello, I'm Cheryl. I am a choreographer and a professional dancer. I founded my studio back in 2016. It was a difficult decision to do, I think, like we were speaking before. Like the first few steps of the process might be a bit difficult, but I think nowadays I'm very grateful that I did these steps, and I'm very grateful.
I want to focus on you to get our conversation started a bit. So you're primarily known as a tattoo artist on the island. Like there are so many people who actually have their tattoos on you. Your tattoos on them, sorry. Me, myself, actually being one of them. But now you've also branched out as a painter. And shortly after you became a mother, kind of documenting your journey with it. So how has your journey been like in the Maltese art scene throughout the years?
Well, I I have a degree in fine art, so basically I've been a painter before I've been a tattooist. But yes, I started tattooing, and I do think that it's I don't know. For me, I did find it more difficult to pursue a career in painting than in tattooing. I guess tattooing is a bit more commercial, right? So, but finally, after all these years, I've decided that I needed to take the step. After I had Nina, mostly because having Nina pushed me to, I needed to spend more time at home as well and not like spend a whole day at the shop to spend time with her. So it pushed me to take the step, and I don't regret it at all. It's been a beautiful experience. So now I'm thinking of other projects, after this, so I can continue working on my paintings.
And what inspired you to pursue your respective art forms? So as you said, you first started out with painting, but then you kind of went on to tattoo artistry, probably because it's better supported within society to actually make a living out of it, right?
Yes, I mean, I used to watch, Kat Von D on TV, and it was something that, I really loved. So, and before, during my degree, I also focused more on drawing. So it was like the next step for myself. Yeah, so, and I didn't even think it was possible at that time to become a tattoo artist. It was, I was trying to, after I graduated, I was like, what am I going to do now? And then I worked for a couple of jobs just to raise enough money to take my tattoo course because it was expensive for me as well at the time. Yes, but then I was going to go abroad, but then I managed to find someone locally who would teach me. And then it started from there. This was back in 2015.
And back then, I mean, tattooing still hadn't come that far, right, on the island?
I mean, there were already a lot of tattooists, but basically everyone did everything. There wasn't like nowadays. Everyone has their particular style, like old school, realistic. Before they did focus, but there weren't a lot of different artists in Malta. So I guess it was perfect timing for me because at the time I do line work and dot work. And at the time there weren't a lot of artists doing and when I draw with pen. So for me it was like something organic that happened. That's it.
Amazing. All right. So, Cheryl, so as I mentioned before, you're the founder of one of Malta's biggest dance movements. And it's safe to say that it's paved the way for many young dancers on this island. What has your experience been like to lead such a movement, and what inspired you even in the first place to found something like that?
That's a big question. I think firstly, I think everyone has a specific way how one can like express themselves, being through drawing or tattooing or performing. I always liked moving, and not to put any label on a certain dance style, but for me to express even just just moving for me is just therapeutic, actually, and it is. So for me, that is what inspires me most. First, I think going through life, for me to express something is a must. Is something I need to do. So I guess that's the first push. Then, of course, in Malta, at the time I started dancing, this was 10 years ago. Exactly 10 years ago. There wasn't a lot of studios. I mean, there's a lot of dance studios in Malta, but the specific style I wanted to try wasn't that popular. So I started with a company first, with a dance school, and I tried in Malta, let's start from here. In Malta, we don't have enough knowledge as much as as abroad, you know. It's much more difficult to, at least for me personally, I think it's much more difficult to be in Malta and try to, you know, advance in what you're doing. But knowing that abroad offers knowledge and you can go and take workshops, take as much as you can, you know. I always wanted to do that, one, because I wanted to train myself, and I knew that abroad there are many dancers, like countless dancers, which are amazing, and like, so I wanted to learn as much as I could to bring back the knowledge here. And for me, like I always want to give the people that's something that I didn't have in that time. So for me, bringing the knowledge down here to give it all to the dancers in Malta, I think it's a really good. I mean, nowadays people go abroad, train, but at that time, I think it was very. At that time, it was more limited, I would say. So, I think firstly that's what inspired me. So expressing myself and to push dancers in Malta, it gives me satisfaction and happiness to see people growing and pushing them, since I didn't have no one to push me and, you know, support me that much. So I think
I think it's quite beautiful to be a pioneer within an art form, offering that support that you didn't yourself find, you know. I think that's extremely powerful. And you mentioned dance primarily being a form of expression for yourself.
Yes.
So let's say, for example, I don't know, you're moving through something in your life, you're feeling certain emotion. Is dance the first thing that you turn towards?
Yes, always.
Hannah, now, you've taken part in some of Malta's best theatrical productions. Can you give us a bit of your backstory and what inspired you in the first place to take on theatre? Like, when was the first ever production that you ever took part of?
Well, it depends how you define production. From when I was young, I mean, like 5 years old, young, I would be the first one wanting to be part of the nativity play at school, the first one wanting to, even just videos that my mom used to take of when I was young. It was just me wanting to be there, wanting to sing, wanting to dance, wanting to be on camera. So looking back, it's always something that just came from within me, I think. And that's the beauty of art in itself. It's something that resides within you. But production sort of started happening recently. I mean, in the last year, I started getting myself into big productions. I feel like my training went on between when I was about 10 to when I was 16 officially, because I was at a performing arts school, which was kind of on the side, obviously not mainly that. I used to go to school and then go to my lyrical class or go to my musical theatre class on Fridays, and it was almost a social thing, extracurricular we would call it. But then I got to the point where I was 16. The classes kind of stopped because at that age, you don't go to extracurricular anymore. You have to seek it out yourself. And I didn't really know what more to do. So I at that point, it was soirée. It was very community related, which is a great platform. Then I had auditioned for a panto, and it was kind of on a whim. I was like, you know what? There's this thing. I saw it on Facebook, almost as a joke. I was like, let me send in an email. I went for my first audition. I got my first role with MADCU Panto in 2016. And that was, I guess, my first professional platform. But at that age, I didn't even realize what it was. To me, it was just doing another production with all these incredible people.
And you were 16
I
at
was
that
16,
time, right?
so like my mom was driving me to and from rehearsals and to and from the shows. So this was just an extension of what I had been doing. Then sixth form and uni, I stopped it. I said, you know what, that was something I did when I was younger. And now I'll focus on other things. I'll focus on my education. I'll focus on where I want to go. And just sort of to keep that spark in me, I did a few lessons on the side. Like I joined I joined a few classes, a Zumba class here and there, but I kind of put it out of my mind. And then after COVID and after uni, I sort of said, you know what, why have I put this outside my mind? I started full-time work and I said, my evenings are free. Why don't I audition for the next thing that comes up? And it's sort of, and I'm very, very grateful for this, everything kind of fell into place. So I was working a 9-to-5 job. And I was like, okay, after 5 p.m., what do I do? And I had grown up knowing that sort of after school, I went to all these classes. So I had that routine sort of in me. I had that energy. And I said, let me audition for a show. A small role. It really doesn't need to be anything. It's just to have something to do. And I got my first, what I'm calling my first professional production, besides the Panto in 2016 when I was still a child. But my first sort of adult professional production was La Cage aux Folles that FM put up this time last year, a bit earlier than this time. So it was in November of 2022. And that was my first sort of, it opened my eyes into what this industry is. I mean, I'm seeing people coming from their full-time jobs as a notary, as a dentist, as a nurse. And they're doing this. Like, these were people who are in it. They were going from one production to the next, to the next, to the next. You sort of see, like, okay, this is viable. This is how people live their life in the arts, or in at least musical theatre. It also happened to be at a time when I feel like musical theatre was booming on the island. Like, here, you turn your head and there's a musical there, and a musical there, a musical there, which is amazing as a performer. And it's great to see that there's the interest and there's the funding. And it was such a high. Performing for me is such an incredible feeling. It's such an adrenaline rush that out of the first one came the second one straight away. I mean, my second one was also with FM. I went straight into rehearsals for Mamma Mia. Like, the week after we finished La Cage, we started rehearsing for Mamma Mia. So while I was doing La Cage, I auditioned for that. And it's funny because you go into the audition with the same people you're seeing every day, but you still have the same amount of nerves. You go and you do your best and you do the preparation for this, that, and the other. And then it's all about sort of putting yourself out there, making contacts and connections and knowing who's who and knowing who's the best to go for training at. And you see the amount of effort that other people put in. I mean, I was in La Cage and in Mamma Mia just sort of watching these people who do it all the time in complete awe. And you start learning, you start hearing, I go to this person for training and I go to this and I make time in my day to focus on, I don't know, something as simple as stretching, and like, which is something I had sectioned out of my life. And you get back into a routine, and it's an insane routine. It's not a viable routine because it's a full day and you go home and you're just like, I need to sleep. But if you love it, you keep doing it. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm going from production to production to production. And I say I wouldn't have it any other way. I would love to do it and just focus on that. But the climate as it is in Malta, I am extremely grateful that I get to do everything and get to be part of it.
What if you could start your journey over? Start here and start again there. That's how life works, in a circular way. We understand the importance of circles, and that's why you are at the heart of ours. Find your way to wellness with Browns.
We'll get to that later
Yeah.
because I want to ask you about the reality of rehearsals, and probably you can also relate. When you're preparing for a big show, there's so much preparation that needs to be and work that needs to be put in prior. But I wanted to ask a bit, from an educational standpoint, so you too haven't actually studied your craft, right? I mean, you didn't actually get a degree in it. Now, into foresee it was when would you have been studying? Quite a few years back, right?
I mean, studying imma as in...
Like, for example, let's say you had to be like Rebecca, because Rebecca actually did study, arts because it was available. But would you say that you didn't study it because dance isn't really available to study in Malta?
I mean, there is a course at the university, but it's only classical, which for me isn't... It's not me. I would say that it's not me. I respect it, and I'm just speechless when I'm seeing someone doing classical. It's a really big skill. It's a really big discipline. But for me, it's not me, So for me, the fact that I don't have anywhere to go to learn specific techniques or it's just... And also with my style, you cannot have a degree and you cannot have a certificate because it's... Firstly, for example, hip hop is more street. So the culture is very street. It's not a discipline. It started from the streets. So there is no exactly. So if it started from the streets, it's not like ballet where you have a studio, you have a teacher. Hip hop is the opposite. It's complete opposite. You're like, it started from the streets. There are people sharing what they know, and it becomes like a culture, I would say. But unfortunately, no. In Malta, we don't have... So I would say my style, for example, is not hip-hop nor contemporary. It's for me, it's open. It's an open style because I get to have techniques from different styles merged into one. But mostly it's a raw feeling.
Kind of like where the
It's a
movement
raw
takes
emotion,
you.
exactly. So it's a very, very raw. So I wouldn't label... I don't know what I can label it, to be honest. But for me, having just one course in Malta that specifically is telling you we teach classical.
And it's only the one course.
It's only the one course, and I know a lot of people who want to dance and want to learn, but they cannot because it's
still not recognized as such, right?
No. And I wish that we can take it... Not we can take it into schools, because hip-hop, it cannot be taken into schools. That would break the whole culture of it. But for example, bringing youths to learn more about dance. For example, this topic, I was speaking with my friend about it. I had P option in school. And in P option, you have swimming, you have, dance, you have... But the teacher doesn't know what dance is. She doesn't have a dance background. So, you know what I mean? So there is specific subjects that I really don't agree with. Like, how can you teach dance if you don't have any background, if you don't have any... You know what I mean? And I wouldn't learn dance in school for an amount of time. I would open just a course, or my idea is to have just a school for the arts. Like you have, painting, tattooing, performers, loads of stuff, dancing, all types of dance. And it brings like a nice community of movers and just artists together. So I think we're very limited in dance in Malta, at least, in my perspective.
And what about you, Hannah? Like, what can you add on to that?
I mean, I agree with this idea of limitation in a formal education setting. So at the University of Malta and at MCAS, there are courses offered, and it's a great step. Like, it's a step in the right direction. Let us formalize the training of the arts. But unfortunately, exactly like what Cheryl was saying, the arts are not something that can be taught in a structured way. It's not something you teach, it's something you feel. So I had the option, and I had the support as well, even from my family, when I was choosing my degree. I had people telling me, listen, you've always loved performing. Why don't you do a theater degree? It's offered. But even then, I knew, how is that? One, it's not going to get me anywhere. Because what gets you places in the arts in Malta are contacts, are putting yourself out there, are understanding
work.
yourself, hard work. And two, like what I felt like, if I learn this in the setting of university where I have to take an exam at the end of the year, it's going to, if anything, limit my passion for art. So in that sense, I always chose for it to be a hobby, for it to be something on the side so that it can keep sort of feeding this passion for me. Which in a way is sad, because when I think of going to study abroad, for me, that is a studio setting. When I see people, and I am amazed at the people who go and they risk it and they do it, they study abroad and you see that their day-to-day life is not sitting in a lecture hall learning the background of theatre, which is important.
Yes,
I'm not
I
saying that it's not. And you have to learn it and you have to appreciate it. But that is one section of it.
Yes.
The rest of it is not examinable. You want to stand in a studio and learn from people who are trained in that sector, not learn from someone who is teaching it from a textbook
Exactly.
or reading from
Exactly.
their PowerPoint. You know what I mean? So I have been lucky enough to learn from these people, but who are all doing it freelance, who are not teaching it at university. I have learned from some of the people who are, I mean, top of their game in Malta in the arts. And I'm extremely grateful for that. But these are people who have done this, just like everyone here, have done this on their own accord. They're not teaching it formally because there is no way of teaching it formally. And in a way, it's sad. And I think it's a mentality shift that has to happen because, like I said, it's great that there is the opportunity to have this course at university. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. But there needs to be more of an idea of what art is and more of this. It comes from respect as well, sort of. There's this huge industry. I'm speaking on behalf of musicals because obviously that's what I know and that's what I'm familiar with. But the industry is booming. And yet you still have artists who need to sustain themselves with a full-time job in a completely different sector. Why? Where is that separation coming from? It's coming from this mentality that everyone has done school and arts. And it needs to be integrated more into everyone's lives, into everyone's education. It's not a formal type of education, but we need to understand what education is as well. And that's a whole other discussion, you know what I mean? I mean, we have this mentality that education is get a certificate, get your exam, get an A.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's not that in the arts, and it shouldn't be that in any form of education. But I feel like there's this close-mindedness that once we open up to the idea of what holistic education can be, arts will fall into that much more naturally.
And also on the point when you mentioned, because I cannot get a certificate from what I do, but the thing is, sometimes I question myself, like, so I did it basically alone. So I went abroad, I got my knowledge, blah, blah, blah. And again, these people from abroad, they don't have any certificates because it's the same kind of style.
Yeah.
But the amount of recognition they have for what they do and is something that you can see, you know what I mean? Like when you
it's a
know someone is talented or someone is giving you something that you can feel it.
They
and
walk
you
into the
take
room
it,
and you're
you
like,
know?
wow. Yes.
But then, for example, in Malta, we have this problem of, she doesn't have a certificate, she doesn't have a degree in dance, so why is she teaching? But again, in dance, it's such a vast topic, it's such a vast art form, because there is many dance styles, like countless dance styles, that certain dance styles you can achieve a degree, you can achieve a certificate, whatever. Certain dance you cannot, because it's not something, again, it's a culture, it's you know what I mean? So, and thankfully, for example, in Malta, I remember Malta's Got Talent. We were meant to be abroad in that time, but then COVID happened. And then I was like on Facebook scrolling and I was like, no, auditions for Got Talent. And the guys were like, should we apply? Like we don't have any project to look forward to, you know? So I was like, yeah, مش شرطة, yes. And we applied insomma. And my first instinct was like, Kisma, this is a Maltese show. Like, not a Maltese show, but it's a Got Talent. It's not a dance competition. So, anyway, to skip the middle part and so on, we came second. And I was really amazed by how much people appreciated what we do. You know, it's not classical, it's something raw, it's dance where people nowadays, not nowadays, but you know how it is with dance and singing, and then it's not much appreciated.
It's
So
seen
to
as a
see
hobby,
that, exactly. So to see that the people appreciated the work behind all of it, it gives you courage and it gives you the support, you know. But I agree, we need more. We need more opportunities. We need more, for sure.
Rebecca, what do you think about all of this? So you actually studied fine arts, but as you mentioned as well, and all of you have mentioned that, for example, to really get the opportunities that you need, you have to go abroad. You mentioned abroad many, many times. So that already shows us that we don't have, even you were going to go abroad, right? For the tattoo
For
artist
tattooing
course.
but now there are a lot of
Now, yes.
exactly. But back then I'm very grateful because like when I was starting my degree, it was only the second year that MCAST had introduced the
wow.
fine art course. So I was like spot on, perfect timing, and
One of the guinea pigs.
exactly. And you know, it's like I went, as I was saying earlier, you know, I went to higher before, and you know, as soon as I went to MCAST, I just felt like this is my, you know, I felt it was like a home, my second home, just because everyone around me was like like me. So when before I felt like an outsider, you know, finally I was in a place where I could be myself. That's how I felt there. So even if, okay, obviously I think that the course, there's always room for improvement, right? And especially this was the second year that it was introduced. So, but I think that, as you said earlier, there being a place where artists are together, that's already a very beautiful thing, because you know, ideas, it's like, oh, you're doing
Collaborations as well,
collaborations,
so-
exactly. So I do feel very grateful, and even the friends that I you know I had at school. Now this exhibition that I did, I worked with Ryan Falzon, who I met at MCAST as well, and it's so nice, you know, to meet people, like-minded individuals, you know, who feel you. Sometimes it's very difficult to find people, you know, that are so like-minded. That's the thing, and that enjoy doing the niche is so small that when you feel someone who understands, you're like,
Finally.
And that's the best type of learning you can get. Because
Exactly.
we
Yes,
were
true.
saying that there isn't enough sort of almost education on it. The best type of learning is being in a space with other artists who want the same thing.
Exactly. And MCAS did that for me. I'm very grateful for the experience. I mean, at the time, you know, when you're young, you don't appreciate certain things. But now looking back, I mean, it was a very good starting point for me. I don't know what I have done if I didn't go to MCAS. It's like, it was a stepping stone for me, sort of.
And I think like us artists do need to stick together, even though we come from different disciplines. Because at the core of it all, like we all have this kind of creative self that we would like to express out into the world. And as you said, like even translating emotions into our art form. So I think that's very important. So I want to take a bit of a moment to discuss your current work, because we mentioned it already. You currently have an exhibition open at Spazio Creative. I'm not sure if it will still be open when the show will air. But basically, your paintings are all dealing with modern day motherhood, coupled by iconography from prehistoric figures. So you're also referring a lot to the depiction of a mother and depiction of a woman through Maltese history. What inspired this body of work, and how do you think women can benefit from it?
Well, I think this started after I had Nina, and even when I was pregnant, I had this sketchbook, and I was always like writing what my thoughts and sketching and whatever. And in my previous works, I was working. I love history. I love prehistory. I loved Maltese temples. It's like whenever I go there, I just feel, I don't know, the energy is amazing. So yes, when I look at Maltese goddesses, I don't think of them as goddesses. I think that there are like our ancestors, our mothers. So I wanted to, I was thinking about my experiences and how other mothers must have felt before me, how my mom, when Nina was born, I told my mom, like, you love me this much, It's like, yeah, you finally understand the love, that your mother has for you. And so when I was working on these paintings, I was like thinking about myself, but at the same time thinking about other women. So even like when I was painting the face, I was sketching my face in the mirror, but then I left it there. And then when I was working on the paintings, I worked from the sketches. So it's like I wanted to paint my face, but after so many attempts, my face wasn't my face anymore. It was like, it's evolved into other women. So it was a therapeutic process for me, because having a child, it's so, I don't know. I always said I'm so busy before I had Nina. I had no idea. It's like, I don't know. It's very hard for me. I don't know. But I can assume that it's hard for everyone. Finding time for yourself is the hardest thing. So this was sort of me trying to figure out my new identity as a mother, but trying to hold on to myself, not losing myself in the process. So yes, I really loved the painting process. Other things were harder for me, as you were saying as well. Like, it's not enough. I think this is the most difficult part for me. It's like painting is not enough in the art world. You need to make connections, and you need to write proposals, and that is very difficult for me. Even to go to exhibitions. Usually, I prefer to go exhibitions not on opening nights, because on the opening night, you can't actually have time to look at the paintings, at your own pace. So I usually go, after. But you have to make connections. So I'm trying my best to like be more involved in the art scene. I mean, and as I said, it's very important to meet, like-minded people and discuss your work. And, other people might give you some opinions, and it's a very different, but it's a nice process for me. It was.
I also have kind of like a similar question for you. With dance being a very powerful form of expression, how have you incorporated your own personal experiences and perhaps even your identity as a woman into your dance performances? Because we're kind of witnessing the connection of our own personal lives with our art form and how we can actually deliver that into the world.
Difficile, yeah. It's very difficult to explain. I think it's for everyone. For me, if I'm feeling a specific something, I cannot tell you how, but for me, when, for example, I'm creating, again, I don't create with mirrors. I cannot see myself creating because for me, it's not raw. And I rely on my first instinct. I don't know how to explain it. So if I'm doing something, I make sure that this something, I feel the energy. Even in class, when I'm doing class, I ask them like, so if you're moving, because there are people that can move their hands, but some people can move their hands and make you feel something without touching you, kind of thing. So do you feel the energy like in your body, or do you execute or be the music enough so that other people can feel you? Or do you commit to what you're feeling to then express it out? And some people might say no, some people say yes. And it's a process, but you have to really be in sync with yourself. I think first and foremost, like if you are not really connected with yourself, it would be much difficult to actually express or pass on the emotion to others, for sure. So it's very difficult to explain this.
I think it's about like, I don't know, but I think it's very similar. I think that it's not, you can't think too much when you're doing.
Exactly, that's
I
it.
think you have to think a lot before.
Eżatt.
For the
But
concept. But during, you just have to
let
stop
go,
thinking and.
Eżatt, trust
it
in
all
your
out.
own.
Exactly.
I agree, yeah.
It's funny because you guys, I feel like the art that you do is yourself in your art. Obviously, what I've done is been different characters. Now, so far, as in musicals, especially just out of the story, out of the classic nature and the almost cheesy nature of musicals, a lot of the princess roles or lead women roles tend to be the love interest, the follow your heart and follow this guy and get what you want, which in and of itself as a character trait is not something I resonate with. I don't feel like my whole life or my whole journey or character arc has to do with following a man or finding love. But when I play a character, I try and find myself or something I can resonate with as a woman, as a person, as an actress, something I can resonate with in that character. And at the moment, the role I'm playing now in the production I'm doing now, you can really tell that it's an original script. So, I mean, the panto that I'm doing at the moment is Beauty and the Beast. So we all know the character of Belle. She's a princess, and the story is what it is. But because it's panto and there's that poetic license, that creative license where you can change the script itself. The character has also changed a bit, and the script was written by a young woman. Chiara Hisler is the director and the writer of this.
Fantastic. Wow, I didn't know that.
And it makes all the difference. I mean, this character, she has thought it through, and she's much more adventurous, much more raw, it's amazing to see. One, more young people in this art scene. Two, more women in the art scene. This is the first... Let me make sure I'm not making a mistake, but this is the first musical I've been in directed by a female. And the difference is phenomenal. Straight away, you feel like, okay, this is a character that I am really resonating with and I'm really excited to showcase. And it's a new experience. I'm not saying that any of the directors and male directors that I've had before were not in tune with what they wanted. I have never had a bad experience, but this character has that extra edge to her, and I really, really appreciate that. I mean, as a woman myself in the art. So as you're saying, sort of yourself has to come through your artistry. This is a way where I get to do that as well in musical theatre, which is great.
In fact, this leads me straight into my next question for you. Have you noticed like significant changes in the types of stories being told or roles written for women throughout the years?
There is a difference, definitely, even in a film, even in the things I'm watching, even in the new musicals that have been written, and even just the concepts of how we're approaching musicals now. So, I mean, I just came out of Greece, which is like ancient. It's an ancient musical, even the storyline. Sort of when you watch it, you realize, okay, these things would not be acceptable to write nowadays.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a timeless classic and everyone loves the music, and it is, it's sort of just there in a capsule of Greece. But roles are changing. Like I said, musicals are what they are. So I haven't had the opportunity to play. I do musical theatre, not theatre where it's just acting based. So I've never done a devised piece or a more modern theatre. I believe that in that sector, there's a lot more focus on the art scene reflecting the political climate nowadays. Musicals are their own thing. However, like I said, every time we do a musical now in Malta, I know that directors are very conscious of not sticking to the original. I mean, we stick to the script. The script is what it is. But you alter it or you adapt it to be relevant now. So the next musical I'm taking part in is West Side Story. Chris Gatt is directing it. His idea is to stick to the story, stick to the classic thing of what it is, but integrate modern ideologies at least into it. And I like the fact that that's being done, because that lets you explore a character and portray a character in a much more relevant way. I mean, I am 23. I'm not living in, I don't know what year when the musical was written, you know? So it allows you as an actor to reflect that in the roles you're playing. But yes, I do think theatre and the arts in general must reflect what's going on at the time. And right now we're in a headspace where, yes, female roles need to be much more than just the love interest, which is I mean, I'm very appreciative of that.
And how do you navigate like choosing roles? Like you mentioned it before, that you have to kind of connect to that role in some way or another. But have you ever, for example, took part in a musical production where it didn't exactly resonate with you, or it's something that's needed for you?
Like I said, when I took part in Greece, the character story of Sandy, I was playing Sandy, does not resonate with me. I mean, the story of her character is essentially she goes to a new school. They don't accept her personality, so she changes everything about herself to please this guy who treats her really badly. So as a story, as a character, no, it did not resonate with me. But would I have given up that role for that? Never in a million years. It's a privilege to play such a role, to play Sandy. Then again, you find other things about the character that resonate with you. So she, you know, we all know that feeling of entering a new school and wanting to make connections. So maybe she decided to change her whole personality for someone else, to make a connection with someone. I would never do that. However, I understand that need to connect with people. So you sort of go deeper into a character and you realize that the values are still there, those shared values. And I think that's what you need to hold on to when you're playing a character, that their story doesn't match up what you would do. And seek out roles or seek out shows that are directed by people who are going to write great characters. So obviously the more opportunity you get, personally, if I get the chance to choose who I work with to audition right now, I would audition for anything and I would be happy with anything. And I mean, I perform because I love to perform. But the more you work on it, the more you can sort of tailor your decisions to audition for things where, you know what, I really enjoyed working with this director. I really love what she's writing and what she's putting up. So let me put myself in that position and audition for them. Yes, it's definitely something that I want to work towards.
Qué bella, bonita, somos las señoritas que checan y conquistan, somos candela, ella, ella. I like it like that. I like it like that.
Okay, so now I'm going to throw a question right in the middle of the table, the $1 million question. How easy, or is it even at all possible, to sustain yourself through your art form in Malta? You've mentioned abroad, and like this kind of sense of abroad for us Maltese tends to be like the place where you can go to London and actually do theater full time. You can actually do dance full time. In Malta, you kind of already doing it, but how difficult is it? Like, how feasible is it even?
I mean, I'm very grateful. I'm doing what I love as a full-time job, and I have been doing it for like 9 years now. So I do feel very grateful. I did work very hard to make it possible, I guess. But I mean, you can think of it as well. Like when something is new in a place, it's like you have to take the opportunity. Because, okay, if you go to London, don't think that it's going to be...
That's what I was going to say.
Exact.
I think abroad is much more difficult, actually, because there are
more
much more people.
competition. So, I mean, everything has its pros and its cons.
Exactly.
So you have to think about where you are at this moment, what you want to achieve, and see. For example, in my case, I did want to stay in Malta because I love Malta, I love my family. I don't imagine... I mean, I do imagine living somewhere for a year or so, but I don't know. It's like I wanted to stay in Malta. So... I said, I'm going to open a shop. And I mean, and the thing is, in Malta, it's like, if I do a good tattoo on you, you're going to speak to Sasha.
Exactly, and Malta's small. I mean,
Malta's small.
word of mouth really works.
Exactly. So
It does.
it's easier in a way.
Yes.
The clients don't have to travel like 3 hours to get to your
Exactly.
shop.
Insomma, traffic.
Oh, yeah, that.
Stay in traffic for 3 hours.
Okay. But there are pros as well as cons. So you have to adjust accordingly, I guess. But yes, if you say, I did have to work very hard, long hours. In the beginning, as I said earlier, to build my portfolio, I had to work super hard, not get paid a lot. And I could do that because I lived with my mom. If I had to rent somewhere, I wouldn't have managed to do it. So if this wasn't the case, I would have to have worked another full-time job. And, when I had just graduated, I was living with my mom, so I could do that. Nowadays, no, I wouldn't have managed to pay a loan and start now. But I'm very lucky to have, it's been 9 years now. So by time, now I earn enough money to sustain myself. But it's been a long ride, Sometimes people just expect that they start something and it's gonna be like, you're gonna have lots of money. It's not like that. It's like you have to start from something.
It's a process.
And then grow. It's a process. And even if I look at my work, from 9 years ago and the work that I do now, I do see
The difference.
Because, and you know what I hate most about the arts? It's like, you were born... some people say, you were born with this, okay, you were born with a passion towards
Exactly,
an art,
I agree.
but the skill you have to work for.
Yes.
So no, you're not born knowing how to paint.
Exactly.
You have this passion, but no, you have to work hard. And like, even I notice if it, I take like, even after I had Nina, I hadn't, tattooed for like 6 months. When I had to go and tattoo again, I was, it's like the pressure again. And, it's like you have to stay consistent with your
Exactly.
craft and practice every day. You can't just, not do anything. And then, sometimes people don't consider how much time and effort it takes to practice and eventually manage to do something. It's like, I don't know, when I see someone doing athletics or it looks... they make
That's
it
the
look
thing.
easy.
They make it look easy, but
exactly.
it's not.
And then try, or people watching football and they're saying, oh, why do you do that? And then, try do it yourself and see
Exactly.
if you manage. So it's like, it is hard, but it is. But if you work hard, you can do it. I
It
guess
is possible.
It is possible.
It is possible.
I'm gonna flip the coin for a second and say definitely hard work gets you places, connections get you places, and being flexible, So, doing this job and then working towards another job and molding your life around your art is what I think all artists do and all artists should strive for. But to answer the question, is it feasible? Now I'm again talking from a musical theater perspective. Is it feasible to do just that as a full-time job? From me, it's a no. It's impossible. It's
different.
I see people who work in musical theater and then do other things that are related to musical theater. So in the mornings they teach and they direct and they choreograph and they do this, and then they're in shows. But to just be in shows, to perform as a full-time job is impossible. But financially,
like a painter
not
as well.
feasible.
Like that's what I'm saying.
When
is
I
that
think about it, sometimes I'm just having these random thoughts when I'm driving because Allah يبارك مخي ما تنسى. And I'm like, I think one of the hardest thing is painting in Malta. To get to sell your paintings, to paint, to actually make a living.
and I wasn't at this point I could do painting because tattooing, I can, like, with the money I get from tattooing, I can do painting. If I had to just paint, I would
She didn't
go to
No,
Exactly.
exactly.
That's my
So
point.
I had to do something more commercial to earn
Exactly.
money. And then, like, even, sometimes people even, I get this a lot nowadays, as well. It's like pricing work, which is very difficult as well. It's part of, I do find it very difficult.
Same
And
here.
then the thing is, like, when I go to buy supplies or whatever, it's like, they're so expensive. And, and then when you tell people, this one costs,
I mean, you're reminding me of something. So when I was at the University of Malta, I did a degree in arts. Our stipend was the lowest amount that you could get, even though we had to buy so many supplies. Even, for example, when you're pursuing digital art, you have to buy all the programs. You have to have the good laptop, the good MacBook, the good iPad,
They should be provided.
Mela.
Or subsidies.
They should be
saying
provided.
that,
Yeah.
At least.
for me to manage to go through fine art school, I started working at 15. So after school, I used to go to work, like, to buy my first, because I had to buy an SLR, whatever. I spent a whole summer working 2 jobs to manage to buy this SLR. So, and to frame, like, for my thesis, I had drawings, which I had to frame. When I went to the framers, he told me, like, this is going to cost X amount. I was like, panic mode, because I had to frame them, for my thesis. And I remember then, now my husband, he helped me out at the time, which I am very grateful for. But it is very difficult. I used to go earn money and spend most of it on art supplies, which is...
So the feasibility is subjective because you're putting in so much time, so much effort, so much sort of spending your own money to create your art. In my case, you're paying for training because you need to keep up consistent training because, again, I did not go to a school and finish my training and it stops there. So I keep up lessons with a vocal coach. I keep up acting lessons. I keep up dance lessons.
And you have these, like,
keep
on a
that.
daily basis.
Yes,
Also with your
weekly
rehearsals.
and a full-time job. This is the thing. Whenever you go and watch a production, and this is what people, I feel like, don't appreciate or don't even realize. When you go and watch any musical, sit there in the audience and say, this person is a dentist, this person is a notary, this person is a teacher. You're there and you're watching the show and you're going, wow, they can sing and they can dance and this is really entertaining. But 5 hours before, they got there for call time at 5 for a show that starts at 8. They were at work doing something entirely different. Or doing something along the same lines. So a lot of people work in marketing, for example, or work, like I said, they teach dance, or they teach singing, or they teach their discipline, or they choreograph. But on its own, performing is not feasible. You go abroad and you see people who do 2 shows a day, and they go and they wake up in the morning and they get ready and they get there, and it's a hugely sort of taxing and demanding job, both physically and time-wise and emotionally as well, because you're giving yourself out there sort of 100% even when you don't feel it. But they are doing that in their day. We are doing both of those things. So I would, during Greece, go to teach in the morning, get home at 3 p.m. and be at the theatre by 5. And it's an incredible feeling walking into the theatre and you're seeing everyone just get themselves together. I mean, the sense of community is amazing. And I am in awe of everyone who does it. Sort of when you take a step back and you see what's happening, you're like, this is incredible that we have this in Malta. Nowhere else do you find it. But then when you think about what is behind that reality, you think it's not really an incredible thing. It's incredible that people are pulling it off and that we are putting up high-end productions, not me, people, these companies, you know. Theatre in Malta is no joke. But it takes so much. Hard work is a big part of it. But it's not feasible. I cannot tell you that I go from production to production and can do just that. I have to work my full-time job, and anyone else in the sector will say that.
And still go from production to production
Yes,
while
and
working your
rehearse
full-time job.
every single day. So I work right now I'm at a time where I'm working till 2 p.m. But I have friends who are physios, who are notaries, who are nurses, you know, they work till 5 p.m. and we start rehearsals at 6. Like, you rock up to rehearsals still wearing whatever. And these are people who are people as well. Some of them have kids. Some of them are trying to, you know, you want to go to the gym or you want to cook for yourself or you want to have a day where you're resting or unwell. And I'm not saying it's coming from the company, because to put up a production of that end, you work every day. But we rehearse every day from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
It's different as well. For
It's
example,
rehearsal
tattooing.
time.
And for example, with my studio, I think it's different than performing. I don't know how to explain it, but it's much more difficult, again, for painters and performing artists to do it as a full-time job, rather than, I think, tattooing and I mean, it depends. That depends the situation as well.
Nowadays, I do think that it is much better.
Yes,
than
before
10 years ago.
Yes, it makes huge progress.
For example, I just had got funds for my exhibition, so I wouldn't have managed to do this exhibition without funding, because I wouldn't have afforded it.
And thank God we have the funding.
Exactly.
It's definitely a step in the right direction,
exactly.
for sure.
More funding, though.
Exactly.
We need more.
In fact, I was going to ask, because you're kind of sliding into my questions now. Do you think the Maltese art scene offers enough support for young artists? So tell us, you actually managed to get funds.
I managed to get... I wouldn't have managed to get the funds without help. So collaboration, I think, is key. Because if I didn't have help from Ryan and Sarah, the curator, I wouldn't manage to write a proposal
That fits.
I mean, I'm a painter, I'm an artist. It's more difficult for me to write a proposal. I mean, I can write a proposal, but together we wrote a better one, right? So like that, I managed to do it. So I think we need to help each other out. And I don't know, it's when 10 years ago, 2014 I graduated, right? It was more difficult. Nowadays, we have like Instagram, we have social media, which is amazing, because, you know, people get to see your work.
Exactly.
And you don't have to rely on galleries only, or, you know, just a small group of people who, you know, just, I don't know, how can I
Then
explain
again,
this?
Instagram is your own work. So it's you putting yourself out there.
Exactly.
The support itself from the government, from higher, you know,
Can be more
bodies
and
and
more.
whatever. We're moving in the right direction with this of the funding, with even just things like Premio all'Arti and like all these things are
Even
great.
artists, before
objective,
you wouldn't have been
initiatives.
like this emerging artist and then just do a solo exhibition.
Exactly.
It would have taken way longer to get to that point,
Yes.
So I think there is improvement, but
there needs to be more. I feel like there's this discrepancy between the work that's actually being done in the arts, because we have professional level artists, but no one is doing it fully professionally and only focusing on that. And that makes a huge difference when you're working on a craft. If I had all the time of my day to work on just my character that I'm playing right now, مش differenza. Like it would be completely different. I'm imagining it's the same with what you paint and when you move and when you create. You know what I mean? If you can focus on just that,
It would be different.
it's completely different.
when you're self-employed.
It's like you have to take care of everything.
Everything. You have to be
Yourself.
an artist,
You have to be
promote your work.
Accountant, a businesswoman.
Exactly, but you're expected to do
everything.
this on your own. So the support that I find is from people like you, like all of you, and the people I work with who are in the same position. Is there that much support on a broader level? No, I would say over here. And it comes from a mentality thing, because you say, what more can be done? Like, we're doing the subsidies, we're doing the grants and this and that, which is great. But there needs to be this mentality shift that arts are not a hobby. They're not a hobby, because you are going there and you are being entertained. This is another thing, the complaints that we get about prices of tickets. So people expect to go and watch a show at this level, but they're like, it's Nadine El West End, so I'm paying €45 for a ticket. Like, yes, but you're paying €45 for what you're watching.
West End is much more expensive as well.
Yes, and you're sitting there in the National Theatre. You're watching a show for 3 hours. You're watching a show that people have given up months of their life every single day on, like, over and above their full-time job, including these people who all have their individual training and have paid for it and have worked for it. You're going to complain that you're paying €45 for a ticket.
I can understand that people maybe see it expensive. Then again, ما نحسبش they actually appreciate it.
No, I don't think there's mentally there isn't that understanding of what goes into
because they
it.
don't know. Because most of the
Exactly.
time, it's like
Exactly.
even when I do, I'm working on a tattoo, people think that the time I take to do their tattoo is just the time that they're there. No, I do the sketch. No, it's like,
and you've had years of training,
Exactly,
experience.
that's it.
You
That's
know?
it.
To be paid and recognized for that as
Exactly.
well.
Plus, but I always have homework. It's like after I finish a tattoo, I have to go home and do all the sketches. It's like Flash. I start working on them from months before, even to get the ideas and everything. It's like,
And
everything is...
creative ideas take time. As in, you might be a creative, but for me, for example, it takes time to come up with certain stuff. You cannot be like, boom, this. It takes
and the
time.
culture now, it's like everything boom, boom, boom.
This is
you do
also a
something.
thing.
Okay, now you did it. Moving on. It's like everything has to be, you have to be...
Eżatt. Jiena taf eżempju, for example, the thing is, not the comedy, but nowadays it's more like work hard, tough kif, tipo
Grind
just
work.
Do a million projects at once.
tipo slow down, tipo the process takes time, tipo you don't overnight you wake up in the morning, you're like, it doesn't work that way, tipo for me to create, you cannot tell me create something now. No, one, you have to feel something għalija in my xismu. As well, for example, some people, on pricing, eżempju, there was an instance where people would message you on Facebook and be like, Mela, next week I would need 4 dancers for this event. Our budget is €100. €100, choreographer, payment of 4 dancers, rent of studio. No. Hello. Don't get your dancers. If the dancers, this is something like, if you're an artist or you're an organizer, whatever, and you know that the entertainment, mostly, 60% of it is because you're having dancers with a singer or with whatever it is, but you're having dancers.
Be ready to pay.
Be ready to pay. You don't go to a hairdresser and be like, Isma, I want
Extensions.
extensions, blonde, and then this I want, and then you're like, but I have only 50 euros. The boy will be like, Isma,
Go.
so people don't understand it. Don't understand it
It's
at
the
all.
understanding.
And how rude
It
to
is the understanding.
Exactly. What do you expect?
No, you ask how much something costs.
Exactly.
I
Get a
might
quote.
Exactly.
And then be like, Isma, I can't afford it. And be like, Isma, Mela, let's see what we can do about
I
it.
have to say, what is changing when I work with younger people is the I feel like the mentality and even just the discourse is changing. Younger people are more likely, or at least in my experience, are more likely to say, "What is your rate?" Instead of saying, I want you to come for a filming of this advert for 4 hours. I want you to give up this whole part of a day. It will probably extend longer, or we might ask you to go earlier, and you do your own makeup and this and that and the other. And then we're only going to pay you this much. People that I was lucky enough to work with who are sort of younger and more understanding of the situation, I have heard more of these people asking, what is your rate? I am ready to pay you what, because people are becoming more appreciative. So we're moving in the right direction. But I have only experienced this with younger artists and
Yes.
younger people working.
I mean, our generation, I think,
industry.
is kind of also getting
More
a bit of a
open-minded
name for
always with-
itself to not
Yeah.
take any bullshit as
Yeah.
well, right?
As a,
You know what? When I look at myself like 10 years ago, when I was in my 20s, I used to do so many things for free because it's like
People
exposure.
don't
for
anymore.
exposure, everyone for exposure. I used
exposure
to do so
won't
much.
pay my bills.
Exactly,
I'm sorry.
exactly. And then I used to have to go and work, part-time while I was at school. But nowadays, people are learning. It's so nice to see younger people like, no, I charge this much. That's how it should
that's your
be.
shit.
Yes,
Exactly.
we're moving towards it.
Yes,
It
yes,
took
I
me
agree.
so long to start, and I still find it difficult nowadays. It's like sometimes, even when I give a quote or whatever, I don't know what
I feel
it's
weird.
like,
I love that people ask, what is your rate? But I'll be like, oh my
Exactly.
God, what am I going to say?
I know,
Am I going to
know.
say, if I say this, are they going to say, what the hell, this is way too much? If I say that,
Like,
are
you
they
need
going
to
to think,
find
oh
the
my gosh, she's
perfect
so
balance.
cheap? And I don't know, because there's also a bit of a taboo about talking about it.
Yeah.
Because if you're working with sort of people who are older, who are used to this idea of, shh, don't talk about how much you're being paid. Unfortunately, there isn't a discourse on it. And again, we're moving towards it. So we're moving in the right direction, but there's a lot more to be done.
And like you mentioned, like the older mentality, like I think even our own parents, it was always like, "Le, you need to do this, like you need to work this much, even though you're not gonna get paid well enough for it." And now I think this is changing among young people,
is.
Not
Not to say that their mentality was wrong. Their
No.
mentality
Yeah.
was and is what it is for what they understand. Because in
Exactly.
their time, that's what it was. But I notice a difference working with younger people. And that's on a very positive note, at least.
And a lot of us aren't simply settling down for doing something that they're unhappy to do for their entire life, just so they can get the money that they need, Well, ladies, we are coming to the end of the show. So I have one final question for all of you as a bit of a kind of message, a bit of a send-off to what you want to tell the young women and all of the audience, all of the people who are listening to us. So, Cheryl, what advice would you give to young people aspiring to make a career in dance, especially in a world where digital media is constantly reshaping audiences' expectations? Like, what is your...
I would say, first of all, social media is something good for you because it can be a portfolio. I don't agree with social media because a lot of people compare themselves to others. And everyone needs to understand that everyone has his own process, his own way of doing things. So that's one. I think secondly would be to not try and be fast during the process. It's just to take time and understand where you want to go, to get as much knowledge as you can, collaborate, connect with others, learn from others. It can be dance, it can be something else, but it can bring, for example, if I had to work with Rebecca, if she paints a painting and I would be executing that painting through movement, it would bring me into another, you know what I mean, to another creative. I could tap into it. We should do it. Imma, fimt? So I would say take the process more slow, be more patient. Don't give up immediately, because nowadays I think a lot of people are, if they don't see progress in a certain amount of time, they will just give up. So I think taking time and being patient with it. And I think if as Rebecca said, you work hard and you're really consistent with what you want to do, I think it would be possible to do a career in dance. Being it abroad, being in Malta, I think it's possible. So
I think that's very valuable advice, and I think a lot of people would benefit from hearing that. So thank
hopefully.
you. Rebecca, what's one thing you want to tell female artists, especially those also juggling motherhood and their full-time job or their art form?
Don't be, scared to ask for help. I wouldn't have done this exhibition if I didn't have, the support of my family and my husband. So, don't be afraid to ask for help, because, most of the time you can't do everything by yourself. As much as I do love doing everything, myself, I have learned that, you can't be good at everything. You have to collaborate, seek help, and that way you can, learn from the process and become a better person and a better artist, I guess. So, yes, that's the...
Beautiful. And finally, Hannah, what's one piece of advice you would give aspiring artists, or perhaps if you had the chance to give a message to a younger version of yourself?
Oof, a big one. I would tell myself to just go for it. Do what makes you happy. I feel like if I have one regret, it's not realizing what makes me happy earlier. But on that journey of getting there, of following your dreams, it's a rocky road. Like, be ready for new experiences, be ready to learn from the people around you. Like Rebecca was saying, collaboration is so important, and not just collaboration, but watching other people thrive is not competition, it is inspiration. It's even people thriving in the same sector as you, it's not competition. And in Malta it's small, so it tends to feel like that. And the people you're working with are also your friends, and also people who know people, and this and that. But just this sort of, the more I work in this sector, the more I feel grateful to be working with who I'm working with, looking at especially young women, because obviously I am going to relate to that, working towards what they love and just overcoming any insecurities, because there's so many insecurities, especially when you're putting yourself out there, and just learning from them, taking what you can from other artists, and enjoying the ride, enjoy every part of the process. That's what it is.
Can I add another thing
Of
as well?
course.
Because after you say, don't doubt yourself so much.
Yeah.
Because, if
Amen.
I'm better than I was 10 years ago, but self-doubt, I don't know why we do it so much.
Entirely limiting.
Oh, I know.
Entirely limiting.
Well, I hope that the people listening at home are feeling as inspired as I am feeling right now after hearing you all speak. And I would like to thank you once again for accepting the invitation to be here around this table.
Thank you.
And
it was amazing.
cheers. Thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
Same.
Me too. Time to get to a rehearsal.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.